Hello, everybody. Dave Solberg with the RV Repair Club. I'm the managing editor, and we just counted down, so I'm hoping that we got this perfect. Katie and I were working on this earlier, so had quite a whirlwind few weeks here. I actually went out to Las Vegas a week ago. It was my wife's birthday. I did not RV, but I did visit several RV camps out there, or campgrounds, just to kind of see what was opening up, what was happening. And the campgrounds out there are running about 50% full, which is about normal. They said they had a huge June. It seemed like everybody started opening up restaurants and things, and people wanted to get out of their homes. And June was one of their best months they've ever had. July is about 50%, which they said is normal because it's hot, really hot out there. And it was kind of funny. We got out there on a Wednesday, and it was very light traffic. We wore our masks, but nobody else was wearing masks anywhere. Thursday was a little heavier, and I thought, well, maybe people aren't quite ready to come out yet into Vegas. And Friday was a nightmare. It was absolutely packed, wall-to-wall people, 200 people in Starbucks lines. And overnight, they put the mask mandate back on. And so everybody coming into the casino, everybody had to have them. We tried to stay our distance from everybody else. We were not going anywhere near the crowds. We just kind of like to walk the strip, take the monorail, sit away from places. But I did stop at the KOA, the Oasis, the Circus. Circus has changed a lot. And what I found is that they've taken it out from the front of the area back into the back part of it. And some of the people I talked to back there said that if they have special events, then they delete the reservations and use it for the special event stuff. But the biggest thing I found out about Vegas is that they are starting to get some of the shows back. They are opening up about 50% capacity for dining, and I don't know if that's social distancing as much as it is maybe help, because they are all saying the same thing. They are out of help. They can't find people to work. And the RV parks are, they're wondering about their snowbirds, because the big thing in Las Vegas, they get a lot of people from Canada. So if that is not going to be, they're not going to be heading down that way, that means that the campgrounds out there are probably going to be pretty open. The shows are starting to come back. The biggest thing, not a lot of big entertainers, although Usher was there. Of course, Penn and Teller are always out there, but there was a ton of America's Got Talent contestants doing shows out there. So anyway, it's open. Just be careful, be cautious, do your social distancing. One of the things that we've talked about in the past here is that everybody seems to be RVing. Everybody's out there. It's 10 times the amount of sales, record sales. And like Mark Kopp said the other couple weeks ago, or a month, I guess it's been a month ago, in the virtual university, this is not the year to go to a national park. They are completely sold out. It is packed because everybody's going there. So I would say if you can find those niches to get out and take a look at campground views for some of the places, state parks, some of those things. So let's get to the questions. I've been tooting there a little long, so we're going to go in and find... Michael says, I have a 30-foot 2006 Gulfstream BT Cruiser with 3 slides. I would like to remove many of the faded and cracked decals on my rig and remove the oxidation. What's the safest way to do this without damaging the fiberglass? Decals are going to be, they're acrylic, vinyl, sharp line. Most of them, 3M is kind of the base product of all those things. And really about the only way to get that off is 3M manufactures or makes a rubber, it's kind of like a buffing wheel that you put on a high-speed drill. And it's just a hard rubber grinder, basically, that will take that stuff off, and then it kind of polishes your fiberglass. That's the good thing about it. I've seen some people try to use a heat gun, but it's not a really good thing. About the only thing that I've seen that really does a good job is that buffer grinder thing from 3M. We have not done a video on that yet. It's a pretty big undertaking. It takes a long time to do that, and we've been trying to get some of the basics. Might be something we try to tackle this winter when we get some time, and get back to shooting. You know, we spent a year here not shooting stuff, and luckily we had a lot of content built up that we could put in. You know, so the other thing then is to get the oxidation back. You know, what you're going to find is that the fiberglass that you didn't have a decal is a totally different color than the fiberglass that was under the decal, because that hasn't been exposed to the fiberglass. So I would use Barkeeper's Friend. There is some products out there that you can get, like polishing compound, that'll help bring some of that luster back to it. We did do a video on that, so if you go and look at the exterior cleaning, we did a full class on that as well. But your fiberglass is going to be manufactured by Crane in Chemlite. Crane was C-R-A-N-E, I believe. And, you know, they've got several different things that they recommend. The polishing compound, first of all, to get that outer oxidation level off, and then use Meguiar's Carnauba wax for waxing it, because that is going to have UV protection in it. And if you're going to replace it with decals, new decals on it, the decal company does not recommend waxing over the decal, because it actually covers it up, doesn't allow it to breathe, and it'll crack faster. So hopefully those are some things that can help you out with that. Ray Stout says, Dave, have you tested the gas stop valve? Which is kind of ironic. I got this in UPS on Friday. And this is the gas stop. It's our new gas gear. And what gas stop is, and I have not had a chance to test it yet. What I ran into the product originally in North Carolina about 2 years ago. There was a vendor that was selling it. And I have talked with the company quite a few times, but with everybody shut down for a while here, it was really hard to getting communication. And they are completely out of stock of the gas stop valve itself. This is the new one that just came out, but it looks very promising. The idea behind it is if you get a leak, and what it is, it's a valve, just like your POL, that hooks to your tank, and it has a small little spring-loaded excess flow valve in here. Plus, it'll have a dial to tell you, what the level of fuel in your ASC tank or your DOT cylinder is, and it will also indicate that you have a slight leak. It might be that you have a fitting that's just leaking a small amount of gas out of it, and that would not trigger the spring, because it would be about the same pressure you would use for your stove, your stovetop, refrigerator, and so forth. But if you have a slight leak, that gas valve will tell you that it is leaking, the actual dial that's on it. So looks like a great product. I've seen them at the shows quite often, and they've been, very popular in the market. So I'm looking forward to testing it. And if there's anybody out there that has one, we'd like to hear from you. But again, the whole idea is that if you get a leak, an excess leak in this, like you sideswipe a sign or something or whatever, and one of your gas lines gets punctured, it will stop the flow right at the tank because it's excess flow. So good product to have if your unit doesn't already have one. Vern says, hi, during the winter months, we can use heated water hoses for fresh water. Some of us have the underside covered so the tanks stay above freezing. What should be done about the low point drains with the pipe and valves that hang exposed below the covered areas? So, if it's wastewater, wastewater tanks, you don't have to worry about heating those. All you do is put some RV antifreeze down in the inside of it and whatever chemical you have, and you should be good with the gray water and the black water tanks. Now, the low point drains that he's talking about would be the water lines. I don't have one here to show you, but you've got water lines coming out of your freshwater tank and other areas. Now, those are going to have to be protected if they're exposed to cold weather underneath. Now, most of the time, I have seen those up in the compartments, and you can either use the heat that goes into that basement area, or you could put an auxiliary heater in there, those little ceramic type heaters. The other thing, if not, the other thing you're going to have to do is put some kind of heat tape on that. Just wrap it around in that area, and you should be able to get enough of that just to be able to keep those warm enough to keep them from freezing. The other good thing to do then is skirt, like you said, all the way around every side that you've got, and try to keep any wind from blowing in the inside of it, because that could really drop that temperature, because your water line is about the size of your finger. So it's something you want to be very careful of. Okay, so we have, whoops, the winter months. We are live. So Mark 16 is from Dallas, Texas. Mark, nice to see you. I spent a lot of time down in Dallas selling boots right out of college. It was a fun time, and my granddaughter's down in Austin, so I really love that Texas area. How about them Cowboys, right? I had to do it. Sorry about that. So Jennifer asked, do you have a water-resistant paint you recommend for cabinets? Our RV is always muggy, and I want to make sure our paint doesn't bubble. There's several that are out there. I think the best ones that I have seen is Zen Pro Bullseye is one that's very water resistant. I've used it in a lot of applications. Another thing you can do is if you go down and you look at Sherwin-Williams, Diamond Vogel, some of your professional paint stores, you might not necessarily need a waterproof paint as much as the clear coat that you put on the outside of it. My folks, we redid their entire interior of their RV several years ago, and we painted all of the cabinets and the doors, and we used the Zen Pro Bullseye first. It's kind of a primer paint, and then we came back over with a really good Sherwin-Williams brand, and then we did a clear coat, and we did about 3 coats complete of that clear coat. And it's just, and we did it not so much for the water resistancy of it, and we didn't really even think about that, but we did it more for the shine that it had and the durability that it would hold up, wouldn't chip as much, and smudges were easy to take off. So the key to doing that, in my opinion, is to get the first thing is you really want to do an etching with it. You want to get the old shine off of your cabinet doors, whatever was used to put on it. And there's some good etching products. It's a clear kind of, it's a little milky, and I don't remember the name of it offhand, but it's just a liquid solution that you rub on, and you just keep rubbing it, and it'll take off all that stuff, and it will prep it. You're Sherwin-Williams person will know that. I think even Home Depot, they're pretty well trained in that stuff. But the preparation is the key, and then get a good quality sprayer. Of course, you're probably not going to do the cabinet frames as such, but we took the doors all out, and we sprayed the doors, both front and backs of them, and put in new cabinet handles. And man, it was just absolutely gorgeous. I wish we would have had pictures. We did it in a white. That's what they wanted. I would not have recommended it, but man, it really opened that unit up, which was kind of a cave beforehand, and it held up very well. They ended up selling that unit and buying a Brave that luckily we didn't have to paint that one, because it was quite a bit of work. But those are the keys that I would say to painting your cabinets. Jennifer. I have a 2005 Winnebago Voyage. Going down the road, the engine light came on, engine started missing or bucking. The error said reduce engine power. This happened twice after driving about 20 miles. Boyer truck replaced the gas pedal with its attached sensor. I'm afraid to drive it. What can I do? Well, the first thing I would do, since it's a 2005, it could be it's either a Chevy chassis or a Ford chassis, and either way, what I would recommend is to get it into an authorized chassis dealership. Find out from your dealer who they use as the chassis service center, because the dealership won't be able to work on it. I don't think it was the gas pedal and your whatever sensor they think it is. I think it's more in the fuel filter or the solenoid for the fuel filter, starving it of gas. I have seen that in the past. It's very possible it could be just something as simple as a filter. You know, you've got air filters, you've got all different kinds of filters in those. So I would get it into a chassis service center and have them take a look at it. Now there should be a diagnostic code that you can get. If that check engine light came on, then there's a code somewhere in that computer system that will tell them what it is. And the truck center probably is not going to be able to read that with the sensors that they would have for trucks. Even if they have Chevy trucks or Ford trucks they're working on, you need somebody that is a chassis certified technician. Get it in there and have it looked at. Dennis asks, how do you lubricate slide outs? And we just did quite a bit of research on the slide outs. And it really depends on the mechanism of the slide, because there's about 7 or 8 different slide rooms that are out in the market. So let's take the first one, Schwintek. Schwintek is a slide that's used on the smaller slide rooms. It's got 2 rails, one on the top, one on the bottom on each side. It's got the serrated groove in it. So there's a motor that has a gear at the bottom, and the motor's only, about as big around as a 50-cent piece and about, 4 or 5 inches long. And then there's a coupler and a gear at the bottom of that, and that sits up in the track, and that gear runs that room in and out. The only thing that you need to lubricate on those mechanisms is the coupler and the jib. Nothing on the rail itself, no grease in there at all. In fact, if you put grease in, it'll actually do damage to it because it makes it sloppy and moving. It doesn't make the connection. So if you take a look at your owner's manual, if you have a Schwintek unit, you should have an owner's manual. And in there's a diagram that will show you those rails and those motors. And at the top, you've got the motor, and the coupler is the round piece right underneath the motor, runs at the very top of the rail. Then you've got the gear, and then underneath it, it runs on what's called a jib, G-I-B. And that jib also needs to be lubricated. Down at the bottom, you just have the jib. There's no motor there. So you just have the jib that it needs to be lubricated. And they recommend CRC lubricant and Quickie slide room lubricant, and that's it. And so you take the small little straw that comes with it, or tube, and you put that in here, bend it just a little bit, pull your rubber flap away, go inside, and you should be able to see where that coupler is on the top and where that jib block is on the bottom. And again, take a look at that diagram. The only other thing with Schwintek is you need to clean that serrated track and make sure there's no debris in it, dirt, that kind of stuff. That's the only thing. You don't need to lubricate it, but just make sure it's clean, because those teeth are just pushing on that. Now, if you have a cable slide, there's very little lubrication that you need to do with the cable slide other than to check the tension of the cable. And if you go inside, you can pull the cable, and there's a certain amount of play that should be on that. And we did several videos on the cable slide and showing different, how to check that, how to adjust it, tighten it up if you need to. The in-wall slides, or in-rail slides they call them, are the models where the whole mechanism is underneath the slide room, and you've got rams that go inside and out. And basically with that one, there is no lubrication on it. Just make sure those rams are nice and clean, and that you have hydraulic fluid in your reservoir tank for your motor. The other slide rooms, the Quickie's another one that's out there. They don't have any lubrication recommendations. Newmar has a slide room that has a gear assembly with it, and the only recommendation they have is a little bit of 3-in-1 oil on the bearings of the gear, not on the gear itself anywhere, but the bearings where the gear rotates. Same thing with Power Gear, who's owned by Lippert now. And one of the things that that I've seen is Lippert has a great resource on their website. It's lci1.com, which is Lippert Components Incorporated. lci1.com, and they've got really great videos and documentation, owner's manuals that you can pick up, service manuals you can pick up, because there's a lot of issues with slide rooms on the market right now. And a lot of them is because people don't understand how it works, and they're not using it correctly. The biggest thing with the Schwintek slide room is synchronizing. And I talked to the representative yesterday morning, in fact, and when you run that room out and in, and this again with the Schwintek, it's got the two motors. One side of your slide room, you've got a big couch and a whole bunch of heavy stuff, or you've got a refrigerator, and the other side of your slide room, you've got light items. So when you hit that button, that's heavy side's going to take a jolt, and the light side's going to take off easily. So it's easy to get those out of sync. So, and when you shut the switch off, the heavy side's going to stop, or excuse me, the heavy side's going to glide a little more because it's got weight pushing it. The light side's going to stop. So again, you got synchronizing issues. You keep doing that, it gets more and more out of sync. Eventually, it's going to stop and say, uh-oh, motor failure, and there's a code underneath it. The Schwintek representative told me, you push the button, whether you're going in or out, you push the button, and when it gets fully extended or fully retracted, you keep the button pushed, and you wait for the motor to stop itself. Everybody does the opposite. They bring the room out. As soon as it hits the flange, they take the button off. It doesn't synchronize it, and we're going to have problems with it. And then we're going to take it into an RV dealer. And what the representative says is that most of the RV dealers think, oh, these Schwintek motors are going like crazy. Pull it out. Yeah, I can't get one for 6 weeks. Finally, they get it. They put the new motors in. It works fine. But when you do the same thing over again, guess what? So leave that button on in and out until it stops itself, and then it will synchronize. And the other big thing is always level and stabilize the coach. And I get people that have, Integra is one of them, that says, no, we say bring the slide room out in a relaxed state. And some manufacturers, I think you can get by with that because they have a heavier chassis foundation structure in their sidewalls. But when you have a unit that is out of balance or out of level, your chassis is twisted. And when your chassis is twisted, your floor is twisted, and then your sidewall's twisted. And then you're trying to bring a square room in a twisted sidewall, which is like a bad drawer in a dresser. All this is a dresser. Same thing, rides on a rail, rollers, whatever it happens to be. It's just like a dresser. And so if you got it crooked, I have no idea why some of these people tell to leave it in a camping state, a relaxed state, they call it. And I've had this discussion, and I've even seen where the manufacturers of the mechanism have been in discussion with the RV manufacturers saying that is not what we recommend. So, I don't see the advantage of not leveling. I have seen the disadvantage. At Winnebago, we had over 14,000 extensions and retractions, and we did absolutely everything we could to figure out what would happen at a campground or driving down the road or anything. And the times that mechanism failed or twisted or broke were the times that we were not level. So, and I still think Winnebago has some of the best foundation and structure in an RV out in the market. And so, to me, I think that's important. One last thing in lubricating, which is not so much in the mechanism itself, but a big thing you need to do in slide rooms is you need to make sure you condition that seal. That's going to be the flap seal around the opening. You're going to have a bulb seal on the flange. Depending on how long that is extended, that can start to get deteriorated with sun and weather and that type of stuff. So condition those seals. Protect all, and I had one here at one point. I think we took it over to the campground, I believe. No, there it is. Okay. And there are slide seal, cans of slide seal protection, all that kind of stuff out there. But I still think Protect All makes one of the best. It's an all-surface care. It polishes, it waxes, it treats, it protects, and it has UV protection. So it conditions that rubber to just keep it from sticking when it's in, and also from deteriorating, and UV protection into it. So, okay. Dennis, we just did that. Okay. On a recent trip, we opened the fridge and got a distinctive propane smell from inside the fridge. I checked the pilot, was lit, and soapy water check of the connection showed no leaks. Am I correct that the drain hose is the only connection from inside the refrigerator to the back where the propane connections are? Okay, so let me reread that. We opened the fridge and got a distinctive propane smell from inside the fridge. Checked the pilot, it was lit, and soapy water check of the connections showed no leaks. So what I would recommend, first of all, is to get yourself a tool like this. This happens to be, it's called Home Flex, and it is a propane tester. So if you have a smell in that refrigerator cavity, the way that system works is you have only one drain in that. It's going to drain, there'll be a little drain tube on the back of it that comes down. It's very possible that that's gotten clogged. You've had some water that's sat in it for a long period of time, and it starts to get a little skunky, may smell like some propane. If you didn't clean the inside out, it could have that. But this is a tester that you just go in and you hit it, and it will do a test, and you can bring it all the way around everything you've got. And it takes a minute or so to do this. And I would venture to say right now, if I took it over by the the furnace over here that we got running in my studio, we'd probably get a definite beep out of this. But I don't have anything propane related here I can test it with. But this is one of the best testers you can get. And you see, we're in the green, so we're good. That way you know for sure if you have a leak or not. I would also venture to say if you come in and you smell propane every time you come into it, shut the propane tank off and then have somebody look at it. You know, I hate to say run around with this thing if you've got a good propane leak in, but if you got a slight smell on it. The other thing to remember is that sometimes sewer gases smell like propane. So the only thing you have coming in the back of that refrigerator is you've got a propane line, and one of the things you should not use is soap and water. You need to use a propane leak detector, and I don't think I have I do not. I had one from Ace Hardware that is actually a propane solution. They're saying now that the detergent, something in the detergent can deteriorate the seals, the rubber gaskets and seals, and pit a little bit of the fitting. So they don't recommend a soapy water solution anymore. You definitely want to get one that's designed for LP leak detection, or something like this. Great product to have. I bought it on Amazon. I think it was like $19.95. Well worth it to put into your toolkit. So the thing that I would do is I would clean out the entire inside thoroughly with vinegar and water or bleach and water. Make sure you get, it could be spoiled food that's in there. Run some of that stuff down the drain line. You'll see a small little drain hole, and then there's the line behind it that goes down the back of your refrigerator, either into a cup. Some of them go outside. That's just for condensation to get out of there. That gets plugged. That condensation will sit in that pan, and it will not drain out. So those are some things you can look at. And then also look and see if you got any kind of a what's called a cheater valve or cheater vent in a cavity close to it. If your refrigerator is right next to your sink area and countertop, and your freshwater or gray water tank or black water tank even is underneath that, they can't get a vent up to the ceiling, and they need to have one so you don't have a vacuum created in there. So see a lot of models now that will come up with a short standpipe that's about 2 to 3 feet tall. They'll put a vent cap on top of it because they're right at the countertop, and they can't go through the countertop because that would be obnoxious. And that's supposed to be able to draw air in and not let odors out, and they go bad all the time. So there is a video on our website about that vent. It was in it was only a year-old Raptor, and we had to swap that out. So those are some things to look for. Linda says, Are you aware of any, do you have any comments, suggestions about the Jayco and related RV recalls on the two-stage propane regulator? I am told the replacement parts are not available, but the reason for the recall sounds pretty serious and dangerous. I'm not aware of that, of the recall on the two-stage. One of the RVIA has all their recalls out on it. I would get a hold of Jayco personally and the dealership, and that's something that I will do too, and I'll try to come back and repost on that. You know, the challenge that we have today in the RV industry is a supply chain issue, and it's not just the RV industry, it's absolutely everything that's out there. We shut down the entire world for a year, and then we incentivize people not to go back to work, and right or wrong, I'm not arguing any of that stuff, but what it has created is a backlog in parts. And then when the RV industry kind of opens back up, and it did it first, you know, everybody started RVing because, wow, I could take my family in my own house quarantine on wheels, and I can go out and do this. So now when you have a problem and you need a part, nobody's working. You know, that whole year, there was nobody working pretty much in that on the RV side of it. And so the supply chain, whether it was made in the United States or made overseas, it isn't here right now. You know, a case in point is I have a 2-year-old house, and it has a Gen Air microwave oven combination, and the eyebrow board went out. So it doesn't work at all. I went down to our local appliance dealer. It's guaranteed it's under warranty for 5 years. It's only 2 years old, no problem. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I reported the problem, and we got the part put in June 26th, 6 months later. And the only reason we got the part is that I hound dogged that part number all over the country, and I watched every distributor, and luckily there was somebody down in Dallas, my buddy in Dallas, that had one. It was ordered, and for some reason it deleted, and I happened to be just on there watching it, and boom, it came up. And if I had been 5 seconds later, I would not have gotten it. And I actually made a deal or an arrangement with my local appliance dealer that I will babysit this and find it if you give me the code to get in. And so anyway, it's not just in RVs. It's in absolutely everything that's out there, chips in automobiles and so forth. Hopefully it's getting better. We're getting more and more people back in, but you know, who's got a crystal ball? What's gonna come and happen here later on? So anyway, I would say that the thing that I would recommend is to get a hold of your dealer, document it first of all, find out the severity of it. You know, I don't see a lot of the recalls don't get sent to me, so you know, that's something that the dealer's going to have documentation of and find it. But if it's serious enough and you can't get the product, you know, I would definitely wait until you get some kind of resolution on it, and we'll research it a little more. Okay. Bruce says he's got a 2015 Grand Design Solitude with 3 fantastic vents. Sometimes the vents do not close when it rains. I go on the roof to check sensors, clean them with alcohol, and everything works fine. Can you purchase replacement sensors for these fans? Are there vent covers made for these fans, and do you recommend using them? Well, the thing that I really like, Fantastic also makes a vent cover, and sounds like I had a mouse down here. I gotta do some mice repair. They have this vent cover that is it's a hood basically with vents on the backside, so you can leave those sensors up or those vents up all the time and not have to worry about it raining. They're even great for going down the road. You can leave those up and not worry about breaking that vent cover and still get a good exhaust of air as you go down the road. You should be able to get just that sensor. It just sounds like you've got a weak sensor. You probably could be able to get a service manual and do an ohm test on it and just see what the resistance is. They're going to have a plus or minus on that should give you a reading in it. But you know, the thing about those sensors that are really hard, and we call them gremlins, is that that there's so many different variables that you can have. You know, it could be because of temperature, high temperature or low temperature. You know, there's small little yeah, and I can't even think of the word of it. It just, but there's diodes in these things, and they open and close. That's the whole thing about them. And when it gets hot, they swell a little bit and they'll open up. And then when they cool down, they'll close, or vice versa. I've had them in all different cases. Well, it doesn't work. Later on, you go to test it, and it does work. So why does it work now and it didn't work then? Because there's these temperature fluctuations. So I would say go to Fantastic. You should be able to get on their website and look at that sensor. We will do some research on that too and see if we can find what the part number is for that. Kevin says, what is the best product to use to prepare clean old Dicor self-leveling sealant on a rubber roof before using a new Dicor sealant to reseal it? And or do you recommend removing the old sealant before applying new ones? If so, how do you recommend to take it off without damaging the rubber roof? Well, the best thing that I've found to take off the old sealant, it's a self-leveling lap seal. I just use a hair dryer or a heat gun. The heat gun, you have to be careful that you don't get it too close and start burning the material on it. But you know, if you use that and a soft putty knife, like one of the rubber, hard rubber or plastic ones, you know, you don't want to use the metal ones. You could gouge the rough material with it. But you should be able to get most of that off. And then mineral spirits, some use denatured alcohol. You got to be a little careful on the material that's in there. I can use that on the fiberglass stuff, but then there's you know, some recommended like mineral spirits and things to use to get the rest of that off. But you get most of that off of there, and then it's you know, you don't have to get it completely spotless. But I would take all the old stuff off before putting new stuff on. And I have some people that love Eternabond. You know, we've used it in quite a few things. It's a tape that is kind of the go-to for a big majority of RV owners out there. But I do also like the Dicor product. What I like about Dicor is it's self-leveling, so it kind of makes its way into all those cracks and crevices that you might have in between your rubber membrane and your fiberglass front cap. So it's a good product to have. You want the self-leveling stuff. How can I get the speedometer and other dash components working on our beloved 94 34-foot pace arrow? Most of the dash components in that were supplied by Fleetwood. Usually what happened is the chassis manufacturer would just have a simple chassis. Ford or Chevrolet in 93, 94. You probably had Ford, the F-53 and the Chevy P-30 chassis were available. I don't think, I think Workhorse came on just after that, bought Chevrolet out, but almost everybody bought just the chassis, and then they got their own dash and speedometer and cruise control, even the steering wheel in some cases, not everybody. But, you know, so I would say the only way you're going to get that fixed is to get somebody that's familiar with that dash cluster. And Fleetwood's been sold since that. Most of your dealers that still carry the Fleetwood product are familiar with that older product. So that is something that, you know, and another possibility is maybe find a junkyard. You know, there's about 4 or 5 junkyards around the country. Arizona's got a couple down there. I think there's one up in, but if you do a Google search for RV junkyard, that's one of the things I'm hoping to do this, you know, in the months to come here at some point, is to identify some of those and visit them, just see what's available out there, because some of these parts are really hard to find with the manufacturers closing up, selling out, going out of business, all, you know, a lot of turnover in the RV industry in the last 15 years. Okay. Gerald Weeder says, I have a 2014 Holiday Rambler Vacationer SE. The whole stereo instrument panel is falling out. How do I get it back in place and fastened? This started out that the rear video camera stopped working. So the whole stereo instrument panel, Holly Rambler Vacationer SE. And that's a very good question, Gerald. That is one of those. I'm not familiar enough with the Holiday Rambler. That it is a product now owned by Rev Corporation. They bought Monaco, Holiday Rambler, Fleetwood, all those, and in the instrument panel. So I'm assuming they're up in the front instrument panel, and that is typically fiberglass. And I'm not sure if you can lift that out or not, but I would say one of your best bets in this one is probably seeing if you cannot find somebody that is. So I'm looking at the question again, and I'm trying to go through this in my mind. It started out with the video camera falling out. So I'm assuming you're talking about the backup camera monitor, and a lot of times those were pretty heavy because it was way before the LEDs, the flat panels, and so not way before, but before. And so that fiberglass housing, sometimes with the vibration in there, didn't hold that. So you're going to have to rebuild that whole system in there. And, again, it might be looking at a junkyard, RV junkyard, salvage yard to get a new one, or you're probably better off finding somebody that, like a body shop that does some customized, remodeling renovations for older cars. I've got a couple guys that I've used over the years to rebuild some dashes on some cars, even that have come in and built a metal frame dash and punched out all the components in it and then painted it to make it look like a wood grain. An absolutely beautiful job. So you might want to see if you can't find a customizing shop just to do a little fabrication in that manner and then cover it up. It's not going to look factory, but it's not like you're trying to restore this to original shape. You just want it to work and look good. So George said, I just purchased a 2000 Dynamax. While the freezer works, no problem, the lower unit doesn't get cold. What should I look for? Well, the first thing, George, is you want to run it on both gas and electric. Does the refrigerator get cold on gas, but it doesn't get cold on electric, or vice versa? Then you're isolating. It's not the cooling unit itself. It's either a function in the gas or it's a function in the electric. Now, let's assume that it doesn't work on either one. Then what probably has happened is you got a blockage in the cooling unit, and it's not making, the solution's not making its way down to the refrigerator compartment. So the way the refrigerator works is it's got a boiler vessel that has ammonia, hydrogen, sodium chromate, and water down in this boiling vessel, and that solution moves over to the burner assembly. So when you're on LP mode, it's got a flame, and it heats that solution up. When you're on electric, it's got a heat probe on the side. So both of them heat the solution. It turns to a vapor, and the vapor and the gases go up through the flue into the supply tube, and it gets up into the evaporator coils, and those are in the freezer. And as it goes through the evaporator coil, it flashes. And that flash is kind of like when you sweat and you get air going through it, and it cools. It's pulling air and moisture, or excuse me, heat and moisture out of that freezer compartment. Then there's a series of chemical reactions that happen. Some of it turns back to a liquid, some of it turns back to a vapor, gas, and so forth. And there's a series of tubes that all these different solutions make their way down into the condenser section, which is your refrigerator. And if you were able to take your refrigerator out and look at the backside of it, you'd see these series of zigzag tubes on the backside. All that stuff then turns back into a liquid and makes its way back down to the boiler vessel, where it does the whole thing over again. And it just keeps doing that and pulling air as your thermostat is calling for cold. So it's not really throwing cold in, it's taking heat out. Now, a big component in those refrigerators is that they need to be level, 6 degrees side to side, 3 degrees front to back. And they do have a little bubble level that most of them, and I don't know if I have, I do. So this is the bubble level. I know it's hard to see, but it is just a little disc that is supplied with your refrigerator when it was new, but 2000, 2000, probably not there anymore. If that circle, that bubble is within the circle, it's okay. If it's not, then that solution can't make its way back down. And this is a big problem with absorption refrigerators, or a common problem is people bring their RVs to their house, they put them in the driveway, they plug them into their garage, and they want them to cool down for 2 days or 3 days or more. And then they put their food in. Well, that whole time that driveway is at an angle, and since they're not sleeping in it, they don't realize that, I get out to the campground, I level it because I want to be comfortable, not even thinking about the refrigerator. I got it at home, it's out of level. The more often I do that, the more that solution can't make it down, and it gets stuck right up at the top. If you hear a gurgling sound when it's trying to cool, that means that solution hit. If it's out of level, it can't make it to that next ring or zigzag. It sits in this side, it gets hotter and hotter, and it flakes, and then eventually it will block that solution from getting to your refrigerator, and it makes its way back down, gurgles, and it can't cool the refrigerator compartment of your refrigerator. Hopefully that's not it, but if it works on gas, it doesn't work on gas or LP, that's more than likely the problem, and that normally means a new refrigerator. There are some companies that are claiming they can put a new cooling unit on the back side of it, but by the time you have the labor and all that involved in it, you have the price of almost a brand new refrigerator. There are some companies that say they can cut just the blocked out part. What I would recommend doing is, if it doesn't work on gas and electric, I would recommend pull the refrigerator out and test that cooling unit yourself. Put it down, put a 120 volt power cord directly to the heat element. Bypass the monitor board, all the stuff that's in here, and make sure that run it for 24 hours. If your freezer works and your refrigerator doesn't, it's a cooling unit. And you should be able to take a temperature gun like one of these right here and just go and hit, along that thing, and all of a sudden on the corner, it'll go, woo, we're up to 100 or 250, 60 degrees or more. It's like, nope, I know that's the block spot. Now, I have known some people that have been able to roll the refrigerator a little bit and dislodge some of that stuff that's in that corner. It's kind of a last-ditch effort, in my opinion. But if you take that refrigerator, and you're going to have to do it anyway. If it doesn't work on gas and electric, you're going to have to put something else in there. Either get it fixed or put something else in it. And if you can do that yourself, you're going to save a lot of labor time. We got a video online showing us putting a new refrigerator, taking the old one out, putting a new one in. So you can see that on the website. We have a lot of troubleshooting videos that help walk you through what I just said there. But if that refrigerator does work while you got it pulled out, then it's somewhere in the monitor board or the eyebrow board up in the top. And maybe before pulling that refrigerator out, you could try that first with it just in there. You won't be able to test any of the stuff in there, but you'll see the two wires coming to the probe. You just get a spade connector on a 120 volt line, plug that in, let it run for a day or two. Check the video out. You should be able to see where we did that and can tell how to do that. Chuck says, I have a window broken by hail in a 1997 Carry Light Casby 530. It's the edge glass on the escape hatch of the pop-out. Any luck finding these? Not necessarily. And I hate to say that, but let me see if we get down there too. So I don't think Carry Light does that anymore, but there are several companies. Hair, H-E-H-R, is a company that manufactures those. Lippert manufactures about everything anymore, and I'm pretty sure you can find a replacement customize one if you get the dimensions of it, because I have not heard of Carolite being in the business for many, many years. And I know Winnebago used to make their own, and they have gone to the Lippert brand and hair in most cases. There is another one called Hurd, Hurd. So if you can get the dimensions, I think you can find, you're probably going to have to go through a dealer, although there are some companies like PPL Motorhomes out of, I think they're out of Texas, that does a lot of online shopping and will drop ship things like that. So get the dimensions of the thing, some pictures of it. Something you might want to try is take that window out and take it down to a glass company. Pretty much the way the window's put in is you've got an interior ring that is screwed in, and so it just sandwiches the outside ring and the inside ring. So if you can take that out, there'll be some butyl tape that's in between the frame and the wall, and then probably a silicone cap, and just razor knife that, and get two people. If you can't, put some blue tape all the way around the outside. You don't want the window falling out. So you pop the frame out of the inside. You should be able to push that thing out or pull it from the outside once you get a razor knife kind of in between there and pry it loose. So you might be able to get it out and down. So again, you're gonna have to take it out anyway. Bruce said, oh no, I got one before Bruce. Martin asks, is it possible to DIY a new air conditioner in a 2020 Puma? I believe there is a skylight there, but it is wired for an air conditioner. Oh, okay. He wants to add one. So this is something, the first thing you have to look at, is it possible to add a roof air to a 2020 unit? The first thing you have to figure out is, do you have the structure in the roof to hold the weight of that air conditioner in there? Typically what happens is they've got one in the living room and one designed for the bedroom, and it's an option. Usually the living room one is standard, the bedroom one is optional. People don't put it in, and then you want to put it in afterwards. It already has two membranes going across to support the weight of that air conditioner, because you're adding probably about 65, 70 pounds to that bouncing around into the top. And if it's just designed for, a vent, it's not going to have the structure in there to hold it. So you'll have to figure out some way to add structure to it, which is normally putting two ribs inside, like a channel, and then covering them with some kind of a fabric. You'll still see them, but it almost looks like a nice piece of trim coat. The other thing is, does it have 120 volt? And you said, I believe there is a skylight there, but it is wired for an air conditioner. So if it's wired for an air conditioner, then I would imagine it's got the support up there. The two things you want to look for is it wired 120 volt for the power, but also is there a 12 volt wire for control to the thermostat? And if not, then you're probably going to have to get a roof air conditioner that has the dial on the roof air itself. So you got to find out, is there something that you control it from a thermostat? And usually your thermostat's going to have to be in that room, because your temperature sensor needs to be in that room. So if it's in the bedroom, find out if you have any kind of wiring for that. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get it to a thermostat. You're going to have it on the dial itself. So you should be able to add it to that. Okay, let's see. I do not. But it looks like that's all the questions we have for the time being. So just one other thing I want to talk about a little bit briefly is that we have had a large number of questions and comments coming in about air conditioners, and a lot of times people think it's a pandemic, that these, and Coleman's been the big one that we've heard about, and people are just going nuts about it. And I talked to the Coleman rep that babysits the Winnebago projects over here, also the one that does the Tiffin projects, and even the tech support at the office, and then talk to people at Winnebago. And they said that their actual warranty issues are at about the same percentage. They're less than 1%. But what's happening is that their volume has increased. They're selling record numbers of RVs. So that means at 1%, you're going to see more happening, even though your percentage isn't more. But the biggest thing that's happened that we have seen is that people can't get parts. And so when I talked to the Coleman representative, there is a Mach 8 is pretty common. And the standard Mach 8 is a low profile unit. It's not designed for vibration. So what happens is you get a lot of manufacturers that can't get the larger one that's designed for that. So they put the Mach 8 in that's only designed for the big units with air suspension that don't really get off the road much and don't have a lot of vibrations. And so when they have problems with those, then they need to replace them. And they can't get them because they can't get the fiberglass shroud for the bottom and the top. There's a national resin shortage, which is not just in the RVs, it's in everything. But so what happens is if the dealer can't get it taken care of, we have to wait. We don't know how long we have to wait, so we call the factory. So the call volume is up, but the breakdowns are not. So one of the things that I highly recommend, that if you are having a problem with something, make sure you get it documented. Make sure you call the company like Winnebago, the owner relations, so it's documented and they can get it taken care of. They are kind of the first line of people getting parts as it starts to open back up, and hopefully we're seeing more people coming back on, and and just you're going to have to be patient. Unfortunately that's it. Bruce M. said, I just renewed my membership. Thank you for your help. Bruce, you're welcome. I appreciate you coming in tonight, and it really is a joy for me to help answer questions and go to the shows, and I'm really looking forward to going to the shows. I have one coming up the 24th, I believe it is, in Raleigh, North Carolina. So if anybody's out in the Raleigh area, please stop by and see me. We've got a whole lineup of seminars. We're going to be in Charlotte in September. There's the first two shows kind of coming back online a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see. A lot of shows have been canceled because dealers don't have product, and but we're going to be practicing our social distancing and make sure everybody's separated. So looking forward to getting those. But Bruce, I appreciate it, and I really enjoy being able to help answer questions or to research. I don't know the answers to every one of these things, and I learn something new every day. So it's a real pleasure to do that. Thomas said, I think this will be our last one. Do you have a paint you recommend for plastic on the outside of the RV that holds up better to weather and sun? And I still go back to the Zen Pro Bullseye. I get it at Menards, but I have used that on a ton of different things. I painted I don't even remember what year coach it was, with the aluminum skin that was starting to, not deteriorate, but fade so bad you could just see dark aluminum. We wiped it down really good with TSP first, and then we did the etching with the product, and we shot it with the Zen Pro stuff, and it really looked nice. And we put a couple clear coats on it. It wasn't a professional job by any means, but it really worked well in my opinion. So that's what I would recommend on something like that, especially plastic. But do the prep work. That is the big thing. So with that, I don't think we have. Mark said, thanks for your time, Dave. Until next time, Mark, thank you very much. We have not got a September one set yet, but we'll get that out here as soon as possible. I do have the show coming up. That's about the only thing that is going to get in our way in September, and hopefully we'll get back out and shoot some more product videos and try this gas stop out and everything. So with that, I appreciate everybody coming out. Stay safe out there. Do your social distancing. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. Who knew my mom was right all these years? So with that, I appreciate you coming out, and have a great rest of the week, and have fun RVing with what's left of the summer.